Have you ever asked yourself what it means to have faith? Or what is faith? Hebrews 11 and verse 1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But what does that mean? When I think about faith, the first person that always jumps to my mind as an example of that faith is Abraham. I think about so many things that he went through. He's already really old, and God comes to him one day and says, you know what, you're going to have a son, and I'm going to leave you this great inheritance, and your people are going to be so many that they're going to be like the sand near the sea. They're going to be like stars in the sky, and they're just going to go on forever. You're going to leave this wonderful inheritance. And Abraham says, you know what, I'm really old. And his wife Sarah, she just laughs about it and says, that's not going to happen. But even though, there was some doubts there initially, he still believed that God was going to give them that inheritance. And lo and behold, just like God said, he has a son. Sometime later, God comes back to Abraham and says, Abraham, I want you to go to this mountain, and I want you to take your son with you. You don't need to take anybody else, but take your son with you. And there, when you get there, you're going to take your only son that I promised you as an inheritance, and you're going to kill him. You are going to offer him as a sacrifice to me. At that point, when you step back, I can say, what? You promised me that I'm going to have all these descendants, and you're asking me to kill my son, so how could I have any descendants? But not Abraham. He loaded up everything that he needed for the journey, and they go. They just go. I wonder what was going through his mind. I have a few clues what would have been going through mine. But he goes, and they get to the mountain, and they're going up the side of the mountain, him and his son, and all of a sudden, Isaac, he says, well, hey, Dad, where's the ram? Where is the sacrifice at? And Abraham looks at his son, and I can't help but think that I can't even imagine the emotions that he was going through. And he said, you know what, son? God will provide. And lo and behold, the rest of the story, that God did provide. That Abraham had gone to the point where he laid his son on the altar, he had him bound, and he raised his knife when an angel spoke out and says, don't harm that boy. Don't harm that boy. Your faith is great. So he trusted God. He had faith. And because he had faith, he did exactly what God told him to do. He didn't see the answer. He didn't know what was going to happen. But he said, okay, God, I'm going to do this. God calls us to live a Christian life, a lifestyle that is based on love and sacrifice. Jesus himself said that the greatest two commandments were loving God and loving each other. So we rule our life by that. And sometimes that leads us into places that we just don't know where we're going, or we don't know what's going to happen. But we say, okay, God, I'm going to do it because you told me to. Hebrews 11, starting around verse 8, also says, by faith Abraham obeyed. It says he was called to go to a place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. Isn't that a really neat statement? He didn't know where he was going, but he went out. He went out because God called him. He went out because God instructed him. And he went out because God loved him. And he knew, he looked back and saw every promise that God had ever made was true and was kept. And because of that, he knew he served the one true God. It says by faith, he went to the place where he would receive as an inheritance. What's God calling you to do? He's not calling you to sit there and sit still and be just this person so filled with a spirit of timidity that you just sit there and do nothing. He's calling you to go, to receive your inheritance. He's calling you to be a child of God. And by faith, you step out. By faith, you go, no matter where he calls you.